Shack, Episode 3. Good morning, world. Today we're going to do something a little bit different here in the Make Shack. I have recently received a tool that I ordered from a used tool dealer, a collector, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to get this thing in working order. I'm just going to kind of walk through the process I use when I get a new, to me, old tool, and do a couple of test cuts with it. I don't know how long this is going to be. It could take forever, or it could take 2 minutes. Hard to say. All right, I know you're dying to know what it is. And so here we are, a Stanley number 48. This is a tongue and groove cutting plane, combination plane, so it cuts the groove in one orientation and the tongue in the other orientation. Pretty slick little piece of work here. All right, so right off the bat, I'm feeling that the fence here is a little bit loose. I see that's attached by a screw. So let's just start with a screwdriver. So fairly tight. I'm not going to crank it down. It's not that the screw is loose. It seems like there's some slop in the joint. So I think what I'll do is take that apart. Well, let's get that blade out of here. We have two adjusters. Right, so instead of a single blade joined together, this one comes with two separate blades. So well, there's good and bad to that. The single blade is nice. You get it sharp, you get it straight, you slap it in there and go to town. That's simpler. This one, the upside of this is if you want to cut the backside of your tongue and groove a little shy, you can advance the backside blade a little bit. The reason you would do that is so you can reduce the amount of, or reduce the likelihood that the back will bind before the top, making that top seam tight and leaving a little gap at the back where you don't see it. So, neither here nor there. Let's take this apart. Okay, simple solid casting, just a screw, well not a screw, a bolt. Straight headed, doesn't look like there's much going on here, so the only thing you can do with this, and the only thing it probably needs, is a little bit of a shim. And it doesn't need to be much. I think I'm going to start with a thick piece of paper. Okay, so this is a piece of paper out of my sketchbook. It's fairly heavy. It is 100-pound paper, so that's a fairly thick piece of paper. It's just a random sketchbook I got for doing concepts in. All right, so let's cut out a little square to start. Okay, and then kind of wish I had a punch, but well, I don't necessarily need it. I dropped it. cutting a little section out of the center here. I don't want a big flange when I put this through. Thread part through, and then just kind of force it up over the shoulder. Hopefully I don't tear it. Okay, good. So now the screw goes back in place. Put our piece of paper on. See if we can get a little bit of oil on it to make sure it stays lubricated and help keep it from just wearing out. I need to refill my oil can. I had a tin woodcutter visit the other day. Virtually drank this stuff. That's not working. Get back to that later. Okay, so now let's reassemble and see if that helped the slop. Probably wouldn't care about this too much, except nothing damages a moving part faster than slop. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Get a little oil or grease on that and that's going to be beautiful. That is solid as can be. Perfect. All right, that was an easy fix. So now we have our plane here. Get up a little closer. You see it a little bit better. Well, maybe not that close. This is a Stanley number 48. If you can see that right there. It's the simplest thing in the world. Just a couple of castings, a couple of little adjuster screws here, bolts, and a handle. So this one's in really amazing shape. I work with I buy from a particular guy. I'm going to reach out to him, let him know that I'm planning on linking him up here just to make sure that that's cool. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But he does a great job finding good tools, charges a fair price, and he'll really work with you to get you what you need. And he found out of his collection this really, I gotta say, pretty excellent number 48. It's in great shape, and I think it was a very fair price, so I'm quite happy with that. Anyway, that's pretty comfortable. I've never actually held one of these before. On a lot of the antique planes, the handles are small for me. I have big meaty paws. And this one's just a little bit small. It would be nice if that was not digging into my palm, but it's better than normal. So I'm pretty happy with the comfort, the ergonomics, if you will. So the next step, I think, on this one is we've got a little bit of surface gunk here on the fence. That's going to happen over time and probably over here on the running surface, but if I get that cleaned off now and get this nice and waxed, that'll make this a smooth running plane, and that will feel good in the hand. I'm going to go grab a little bit of steel wool. Alright, I've got my roll of Liberon 4/0 steel wool here. They've got a reputation for quality, and their grading actually runs probably a little bit on the conservative side. People who know about steel wool, I'm not really one of them, say that this stuff tends to be about equivalent to everybody else's 6/0, and basically just means it's really fine. The number of aughts is how fine the weave is, the size of the wires. So I've been very happy with it though. Buying a big bundle lasts you forever. You might have freaked out a little bit seeing me with my good shears cutting steel wool. So a little known trick for actually sharpening scissors is to cut through steel wool. Because the way they're designed, these surfaces here, these faces, are the actual cutting edge. So once they get dull and get burred up, if you cut some steel wool, that's kind of like running these on a sharpening stone. It'll hone your scissors a little bit. So I don't mind cutting my steel wool with scissors. I think it might actually be good for them. Okay, get out the old paste wax. Excuse me. Get a little wax on here to give me something to polish with. Take this back apart. Okay, there we go. Now just a little bit of elbow grease. I'm not trying to remove the surface, the Japanning as it's called. I just want to kind of clear whatever gunk off I can. If there's any little bit of rust on here, pitch, whatever from prior use. I want to really gently lift that up and work this wax down into all the little creases and crevices, kind of the grain and the milling. Just let this stuff get down in there as well as I can. Alright, so as I run my hand back and forth here, I'm not feeling anything but smooth. So whatever's coming off of that side has come off. And I'll do the same on this side. Go back and forth. I can feel a little bit of resistance here in the middle, a little resistance here in the end. And that's just the gunk. Basically it sticks up above the surface so I can feel it in my fingers as I work this steel wool in there. And now, getting to the point where I can't really feel it. This side's got a couple of smallish dings in it, and I can feel those. They're not going to go away, but they will be full of wax, and that'll help smooth that out. And normally a ding's not really going to cause any friction, so that's really a non-issue. All right, now got to keep my washer. So this is the sole. This runs on the edge here, so that's also got to be nice and clean. A little bit more gunk here, but again, not very much. So I often wonder what kind of life these tools had before they came to me. It seems in most cases to have been a very easy life. Or the person who owned them before me was just incredibly anal about taking care of them. That's nice too. Either way, doesn't really matter to me. I got a good tool and that's all I care about. I use them pretty hard though, so the person after me is not going to have the same statement. Get down in here. This little recess here is where the tongue bottoms out when you're cutting the tongue side of the groove. So that doesn't get much wear, but might as well clean it up while we're here. Alright, this is not a wear surface. Now we're just putting lipstick on a pig. Good enough. Great, that's all smooth and nice, so we'll reassemble. Oh, no, that goes through there first. There we go. Reassemble. And at this point, everything is so clean. Maybe I'll put a little coat of wax on the knob there, just for pretty. And at some point I'll come back when I find a working oil can or some oil, and I'll put a little drop of oil on the front pin here with the spring on it, and on the threads of each of these screws, and on these pivot points. So that's really all there is for moving parts. It's such a simple plane. Brilliant. But yeah, that's great. So the next step is blades. I don't really count on these things coming sharp, so well, I'll be dipped. That's actually, wow, that's surprisingly good. That's more like what I expect. All right. This one, kind of crazy. So the guy I got this from tells me these blades came out of a 45, which is just a combination plane. But if they do, they were cut off because the 45 has a little notch at the top corner where the adjuster screw pulls them back and pushes them forward. So these are in good shape. There's not a lot of rust. The backs are polished-ish. Got a good, clean, solid bevel. The corner of this one's chipped. That'll probably take a little bit of work, but if I stick that in the right place, I can just work my way back to it. So, pretty good. Let's go over to the sharpening bench. Curses! It appears as if my microphone died in the middle of this shoot. I guess that means we're going back to good old-fashioned voiceover mode. So I've just spent the last 20 or so minutes putting a new surface on here by sharpening it. So there's a bunch of exposed steel, and that's the easiest way to grow rust. I've seen these clean surfaces bloom rust in under a minute in my shop. I've got a lot of heat and humidity. So one of the first things I do when I get done sharpening is bring my steel over here to the oil can and wipe the surfaces, put a good coating on there, and that keeps it from rusting. Now I'll get these blades installed here in the plane, one on each side. Get them nestled up real nice against the plate that holds them flush. So there's a flat side on the blade and a flat side on the body of the plane. You mate those up. That keeps the edges parallel and also keeps the cutting edges perpendicular to the plane body. Well, parallel to the cutting surface. You get nice square cuts. Time for some test cuts. So I've got a piece of nice 4/4 pine here. This is a real nice clean piece, so it ought to cut well. We'll put a tongue on one side and a groove on the other, or maybe we'll use two pieces and then show them match up, which is always nice. So I'll start by cutting the tongue because that uses both blades. That way I can get them both set at the same time. Okay, it looks like the one side is cutting pretty heavy and the other side is not yet engaged. So here's where you kind of see the downside of this two-blade arrangement is it's a bit more fiddly to get set up. I'll loosen the adjuster screw here, advance the blade. Yeah, there's a big space there, so now it's touching, and we'll give it a little bit of cut, and that's a tiny, light little shaving. So we'll see how it works, and still got a heavy cut on one side and a light cut on the other. But as you can see, we've got a tongue beginning to appear on our board. So we're well on our way to having one side of a match board. So this further side here is cutting a bit heavier than I want. This is a big gross removal tool, so a heavy cut is pretty typical, but I sometimes get tear out when I'm working these match planes, and I'm going to cut it back, bring it back a little bit, get it all set up, and that way it'll cut quick enough, but I am not busting my arms to push it through harder boards, and I'm not getting tear out as bad. So this looks a little bit better. Now both sides are starting to cut about the same. I've got a good healthy cut, and my tongue is appearing quite nicely. We're beginning to get to the end of the cut here. I'm already bottoming them out towards the end, and I've just got to work my way all the way back to the very beginning and make sure I have the plane bottomed out the whole length, and then we'll be done. And there we go. There's our tongue. Looks real nice. Now you notice that there's a sort of a second tongue here on this side. That's because these planes were designed to work in 3/4 inch wide boards. That's by far the most common size for match planing. Almost all floorboards are about 3/4, and the boards you would use in the back of a cabinet are also about 3/4. So the way these planes work is you're always going to use your fence to index on the face side of the board. So this touches up against the face side. And that way you're cutting your groove a certain distance off. And when you flip the fence around, it's designed that you cut your tongue exactly the same distance back from the face. So that means that all this gunge here is at the back. You can cut it off with a knife or a chisel or a plane, or what a lot of people did was just snap it off with your fingers. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little bit with a rabbet plane. That's another way to get it nice and clean. I got to get the fence off of my plane here real quick. And then we'll put the rabbit face right up on there, and a couple of strokes will get the last little bit of that schmutz off of there, and you get a nice clean shoulder. So there it is, a beautifully cut tongue. Let's go ahead and get a piece of a secondary piece here, and we'll cut a groove for that to match into. Alright, here's a second piece, alike in dignity to the first, and we'll flip our fence around here. God, this is such a slick operation. And throw that up against the face. Again, always index to the face side, and we'll begin cutting our groove. We've only got one blade working here, so it's a little bit less physical effort. And we'll just run our way down the work, starting at the front end and then working our way back. So we've got a nice channel indexed. We won't run off the end through sloppiness or weird grain. And in just a short number of strokes, we should have a nice, perfectly sized groove appearing to match up to our tongue. All right, we're starting to bottom out at the end here, so we just got to make sure we bottom out along the whole length of the cut, and we're done. That's it. That's our groove, and look at that. It fits like butter. This front face is nice and smooth. I'll bring you around so you can see that yourself. Hopefully I don't make you sick. And look at that. You can see there's virtually no offset whatsoever. Those two faces are almost perfectly aligned. And that's what you pay for. That matching there is why you buy this plane rather than doing it by hand or with an adjustable plane and resetting it up every time, because you're always going to get an offset. You could have a 1/16 of an inch here where they don't match up, and that is an absolute eyesore when you get everything put together, or you have to plane it down flat. And sometimes your tongue could be a little bit wider than your groove, and then you got to work those down. But with these tools, it's just a bang up job every single time. It is really a nice thing to have, and you get a perfect match plane every time. So there we go. That's a new tool in the shop. It came right out of the bag. You saw me unpack it. You saw me bring it together. This particular example was easy because it was in good shape. All I had to do was add this little shim here to get the fence wobbling, and that was the only issue I had with this plane. Did a little bit of cleaning and did some sharpening, and that was it. And, you know, that's kind of nice. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hope it was interesting. Please feel free to leave a comment or question if you've got some stories of your own, some tools you bought, or any questions about how I did what I did or why I did what I did. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time at the Make Shack.